Sister got pregnant and gave birth to my husband's baby, having full-fledged plans to leave me with the both of them within the 9 months I was abroad for work. I would have had no idea if it wasn't for the fact that I returned home to surprise him and found him returning with a baby in tow. But now that all this BS is done, Sister expects me to play happy family because we share the same DNA, and my husband doesn't want anything to do with her either. So I'm currently in a really messed up situation right now, and I don't have any idea what to do. I didn't know where else to post, so I'm here. For context, I've been staying away from home for the past 4 months for work. I am the project manager for my company and I have to oversee everything. So I don't really get a lot of opportunities to go back home. Even when I do, it's not really for more than maybe 3 or 4 days. So when I do go back home, I just make it a point to visit my husband and spend some time with him. With the rest of my family, my parents, my oldest sister, I had tried to visit them initially, but the timings just wouldn't work out. And I'm not very close with my family anyway. So eventually, I stopped trying to visit them and just stuck to seeing my husband. But it's not like we hadn't been in touch ever since I left home. We used to speak occasionally and even had FaceTime calls with each other. So I really don't understand how none of them thought it was important to bring up something like this to me, like the fact that my husband and my sister had hooked up and she had his baby. I don't think they had any plans to tell me either since I found out about it purely by chance last week. I'm supposed to go back home for good at the end of this month and I was really excited to tell my husband about it. So I decided to surprise him last weekend by visiting him, and then I planned to tell him that my project was almost done and I would be coming back home by the end of this month. However, when I got back home and I was walking towards our house, I actually saw him walking outside our house with a baby. I was really shocked because I had no idea what that was about. And as soon as I pulled up in front of our house, my husband seemed to be just as shocked as I was, and instead of greeting me, like he usually does, he started stuttering about how he hadn't been expecting me. But I did not want to beat around the bush. I had a bad feeling about the situation, so I immediately asked about the baby, and he started telling me not to freak out and stuff. It was too late for that, though. I was already freaking out in my head because naturally, the sight of my husband walking outside our house with a baby was not something I had been expecting to see as soon as I came back home. After a couple of minutes of trying to calm me down and stuff, I just told him to tell me what was going on and be done with it. And that's when he finally told me that this was his baby and that the mother of the child was my sister. As I mentioned before, I was already freaking out in my head, but when he said that, I froze and just went numb. At first, I really tried to think that he might be joking and that this might be his idea of a stupid prank to play on me, but after that, when he did not say anything and just went silent, I realized that he probably was not joking about something like this. Even when I had that realization, I didn't know how to react to it because it was just insane. It took me a couple of seconds to pull myself together before I said anything, and then I tried to speak to him calmly. I asked him how on earth could something like this happen, and then he explained to me that while I had been away in the first few months, he had been very lonely. He told me that without me he had been feeling depressed, and that at the time my sister was the one who had been there for him. The two of them have offices close to each other, so one day he just asked her to accompany him for lunch at a restaurant because he just missed me a lot. And she agreed. So that's how they started becoming friends. And soon enough, he realized that he got along really well with her. Within a few weeks, they had hooked up, but it had just been a one-time thing and a total accident because he had been missing me and feeling lonely. And my sister, on the other hand, had been going through a breakup. So both of them were really lonely, and my husband told me that that's why they ended up making a huge mistake. But right after that, they decided never to speak to each other in my absence again and pretended like the whole thing hadn't even happened because they felt really guilty about it. Unfortunately, a couple of weeks later, he received a call from my sister and she told him that she was pregnant and she planned to carry that pregnancy to term, but she did not plan on raising that baby as a single mother. My husband suggested terminating the pregnancy, but she was against that idea because she thought that it would be a sin. Very impressive how she has such strong morals about having the baby of a man with somebody else's husband, but whatever. My husband decided to go along with it, and that finally explains why my sister had no contact with me apart from a few texts in the past couple of months. And finally, about 6 weeks ago, my sister gave birth to her son and my entire family was there with her. Since she was pregnant, she couldn't hide it from our parents, and they knew the whole truth all along. But even when we had been on speaking terms for the past couple of months, they did not think it was important to bring it up with me. And so for the past 9 months, I had absolutely no idea that my sister was pregnant with my husband's baby. After my husband was done explaining the entire situation to me, he started apologizing to me and told me that it was just a one-time thing that ended badly for all of them. But now, they were just going to put the baby up for adoption and be done with it. He told me that I would never have to see or hear of this situation ever again, and as soon as they were done rehoming the baby, he would also cut my sister out of his life since both of them agreed that it would be for the best. But none of that mattered anymore. I was just reeling from everything that I had just been told, and there was no way that I was going back to him after that. Even while he was apologizing, I decided to turn away and just get in my car and start driving. At first, I had no idea where to go, but then I decided to go over to my parents' house and speak to them. Surprisingly, my sister also happened to be there.